Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kim. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for all that RBC does, and all of you. It is inspirational to be in this room and to be here with you on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit. And I know that there are others who are listening in, and you may not be on the territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit, but I want to acknowledge the First Nations and Aboriginal and Métis communities that came before us. And I want to thank you, Siobhan. Thank you very much for inviting me. Rod, thank you for your leadership. It seems to me, and I was just talking to Helen Burston about the beginnings of CivicAction, and there was Toronto City Summit Alliance, but I was trying to remember there was a group before that, just as the amalgamation, and I'm looking at John Tory. Was there not a group even before Toronto City Summit Alliance? It had another name. Anyway, I remember being at a very early meeting of community leaders coming together to address the challenges that we were facing at that time. And some of you know I had been on the ramparts of the anti-amalgamation fight, and it seemed to me that that conversation kind of flowed into this one about, okay, here we are. Now, how are we going to work together to make this new place work? And I just want to say that over the past decade, CivicAction has become such an important forum for a discussion about how to find innovative solutions, how to find the partnerships that are going to solve the problems that we all can agree exist, and to make sure that all of the voices that are necessary are coming together to move the GTHA forward. Au cours de la dernière décennie, CivicAction est devenu un forum important. Il permet de créer des partenariats, de trouver des solutions innovatrices et petit à petit de bâtir une région de Grand Toronto et de Hamilton plus saine et plus prospère. I'm very delighted to see many of my team members here from Queen's Park, elected officials, and there's so many GTHA mayors, and I believe that Bruce McQuaig and Rob Pritchard are here with the Metrolinx board. I'm not sure where you are, but thank you very much for being here, and I'm very pleased that Lisa Raitt is here, because I think we can all agree that these conversations are much more productive when all levels of government are in the same room having the discussion. And from my perspective, there actually isn't any room for defensiveness or competition in these conversations. Really what this is about is sitting down together and putting on the table what we can do and coming up with the solutions that are going to allow us to move forward. If we spend our time being defensive, if we spend our time not listening to each other and not acknowledging that for all that we're doing, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're doing, but you know, we haven't got it right yet, and that's what this conversation is about. And all of the people I saw this morning at the booths in the marketplace, you're working so hard to get it right and to come up with the new ideas that are going to allow us to move forward. So my heart is completely with you, and when I sit down with my policy folks at Queen's Park, we're constantly trying to look at ways that we can find solutions. I heard Anna Bilal, John, I heard Anna Bilal on the radio this morning talking about the housing initiatives that you're going to be taking, and I immediately said to Art Eggleton, you know, I want to work with you on those things. Ted McMeekin, I don't know if Ted is here, but our Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing is seized with, in his mandate letter, it says, eliminate homelessness. Now, I know that may be a big ask, but that's got to be the goal. We've got to stretch ourselves that far to say, what we're doing is good, but there is so much more that we can do. And if putting things on the table that have been controversial, and the one that Anna Bilal talked about this morning was inclusionary zoning, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that means. Let's have the developers at the table at the same time as we have the policymakers at the table, at the same time as we have the poverty activists at the table. Pat Capone's here this morning. Let's make sure that all of the people who have an interest in solving the problem are there, and that's what Civic Action is about. That's the kind of forum that you've created, and we're very grateful to you. You know, the truth is that I think we all share an understanding of our challenges, and we have common objectives. I think in our hearts, at the root of it, that is the case. And we all share the belief that the economic importance of our cities is paramount, that in this nation, I would say, at this moment in our history, our cities are critical to our economic well-being. But we also understand that the factors that determine and shape a city's growth are as varied as the people who make up its population. And that's an important point, because it gets to the question of the kind of growth that we want to create, the kind of cities that we're trying to build. Because we can build a greater city, or we can settle for a not-so-great city, and that's not where we want to go. So, when I saw the themes for today's Better City Bootcamp, I was very encouraged, because the way I think of the economy, and the economy obviously is the container of all that we want to do. The way I think of the economy is that it's very much inclusive of all of the factors that you want to talk about today. Mental health and childhood health and public spaces and tomorrow's infrastructure are all important to people's day-to-day lives, and they are all part of the economy. They're also the drivers, or they can be the barriers to the kind of growth that we want in our modern urban economy. So I applaud the work that you're doing, and I think that it is exactly the conversation that we need to have right now. So I want to talk just a little bit about some of the things that we are doing. We are working on these fronts, and I know that was what I was asked to do, was talk about what role is the province going to play, or does the province play already in terms of these subjects. So I was at the Canadian Association of Mental Health conference yesterday of frontline workers, and I was talking there about the fact that we are putting $138 million over 3 years to improve mental health and addiction services in Ontario. And it was inspiring yesterday to meet the people who are dealing with these issues day in and day out. And with 1 in 5 Ontarians struggling with mental health at some point in their lifetime, this is a challenge that touches every single one of us. Every one of our families or our friends or our workplaces, we are touched in some way. And so stripping away the stigma and improving supports, those are the first things that we need to do to make progress. But we know that there is so much more that we have to do to help people to be able to take part in society in the way that they want to. So I think that what we have to do is challenge ourselves and say, you know, we can develop policies, but we've got to make sure that those are implemented in a way that are real in people's lives. And so the work that Belle is doing with Clara Hughes, you know, Clara has touched so many people's lives across this province, across this country. And I think that's the kind of discussion that we need to engender in all of our communities. We also have, as a collective, as a society, we have a huge challenge with the aging demographic, and I'm right in the middle of the baby boom, and I can see around me how society is changing. If I think about what our society, what our communities looked like when I was a kid, and I think about what they look like now, there's definitely a shift in terms of the gray hairs, or those of us who dye our hair, we know what's under there. But you look, my mom says you look at people's elbows. You can't tell by the hair, but you can tell if their elbows are old. So I know I've got old elbows. So I don't think we've got all the answers yet. You know, we're investing a new $750 million over 3 years in home and community care. That was part of our budget. But I think the bigger challenge to all of us is, what are the real answers here? So we need to put money into home care to help people stay in their homes, but I'm going to forget the name of the group here that's trying to connect young people with older people to help them stay in their homes, and it's a model that is being used in Europe and other parts of the world to kind of mix generations. There's also a model in France where a group of feminists they call themselves feminists, they've come together and they're creating housing that's supportive, but it's mutually supportive. They're helping each other to live and age. I think there's a whole continuum of solutions that we can come up with if we allow ourselves to think, and I'm not even going to say outside the box, just to think deeply about what we want, each of us, what we want in our future. So let's do that kind of thinking. Let's ask, is it about more money, and we're putting in more money, and is it about finding different models that actually get us to the kind of life and society that we want? And you know, it's true, we don't want our loved ones or ourselves to be in a hospital bed, not because it costs $1,300 a day, and that's a good reason not to be there, certainly from a government and systems perspective, but because that's not where we want to be. We don't want to be in an acute care bed. We actually want to be somewhere where we can see life around us, where there might be a child, where there maybe is a garden, where there are those supports that make life human. And so those are the kinds of questions that we need to ask. And I know the solutions are there. It's just a matter of us working with each other to find them. And of course, there's infrastructure. And those of you who have listened to me since I was in the leadership and through my time as Premier, you know that we are investing in infrastructure. We are committed to infrastructure. And in fact, right now, we're in year 2 of the largest investment in infrastructure in Ontario's history. And that's more than $130 billion over 10 years. And I'm telling you, people in our communities don't know what $130 billion is. I don't know what $130 billion looks like. But what I can tell you is that people are excited about the idea of having good roads, good bridges, and I always talk about bridges because there are 19 bridges in Kenora that are not going to be rebuilt if we don't find the right funding mechanisms to support that community, and the right transit. Because we have taken a long pause in this society on building transit. It hasn't been part of our DNA. In 1916, when the Department of Highways, because that's what it was called at the provincial level, was established, we didn't think about building transit. It was about having ongoing investment in roads and highways. That's what it was about. And we are now at the point where we're shifting that mentality to say we've got to have ongoing building of transit and public transit infrastructure. So that billions of dollars, of that $130 billion, 31.5 billion is being invested through Moving Ontario Forward, and we're using that to build transit and transportation infrastructure across the province, inside the GTHA and outside the GTHA. Now that has the great benefit of addressing the challenges of aging infrastructure, because not only are my elbows old, but the bones of our province are aging. Many of those bones are the same age as me or older, and so that has to be rebuilt, and we need to do the new building. So it has that huge benefit of making an investment in the future, but it also has the much more immediate benefit of creating jobs. 20,000 jobs a year. It'll reduce traffic congestion, it'll decrease greenhouse gas pollution, and it will lay the foundation for growth for that economy going forward. Now, we're acting on Ed Clark's recommendations to unlock $4 billion by broadening the ownership of Hydro One. So here comes my ask to you. That decision that we're making to broaden ownership, and yes, that means a partial sale of Hydro One in a responsible way, has generated debate, and it will continue to generate debate. But I want to make a point here, and that is that unlocking the value of Hydro One is allowing us to make the important investments that we know we need in infrastructure, that CivicAction, that the Board of Trade, other organizations are calling for. And the same goes for the aviation fuel tax surcharge, the dedicated gas tax. We've made a number of moves to put together the funding to make those investments. And I am very happy to engage in the debate about the ownership of Hydro One. But I want to just say that it's often a debate that has on the one side of it, you know, don't don't recycle those assets, don't use those assets that were built years ago to build new assets. And on the other side of it says, but we really need those new assets. We really need that transit. So that's the debate I'm asking you to help us with. Our budget delivers on that commitment. On the other hand, we need to use infrastructure that already exists in the best way possible. And by that, I'm talking about underutilized community space, whether that's schools, whether it's neighborhood centers, or other public spaces. And I was, 2 weeks ago, I was at an event. A number of you were there. Mayor Tory was there at 261 Jarvis Street. And it's a new sports development center that is being envisioned and is going to be built. Shockingly, it's being built in a space that has existed for 22 years, and those of us who have lived in the city and driven by that space didn't know it was there. It's a huge space that was to be a roller skating rink and it never materialized. In any case, it's going to be used now. And it's a partnership between the Toronto Community Housing Corporation and Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment Foundation. It's a fantastic partnership. It's a perfect example of a successful partnership between the public and the private sectors, and it demonstrates how we are going to have to find new ways of doing things that can breathe life into space and turn that space into something that will make our city stronger. When it comes to building to existing community spaces across the province, we need to develop an innovative strategy to make better use of them. Because it's not just about space in the City of Toronto or in the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area. There's space all over the province that we need to bring that imagination to. So I've appointed a community hub framework advisory group, and I've asked Karen Petrie to serve as the chair. I don't know if Karen's here today, but if she is, I hope she's right back there. Not to center you out, Karen, but if people want to talk about this subject, Karen is working on this for us, and it's a very important aspect of what I think we need to do as communities, because education, healthcare, social services, all of those things are important to communities, and there's no reason on earth that we shouldn't find better ways. There are already examples of community hubs, and we need to build on that and find ways to do that across the province. But Karen and her group is going to need your help, and so we're asking for that help and your ideas. And I know we can count on your insights on that front. I understand later this morning you're going to be talking about the biggest change or improvement that you'd like to see in the region. And I'm not going to be able to be here. I'm going to have to leave right away. But I just want you to know that I see the kind of transit infrastructure that will cement our reputation as a global and sustainable city as critical to the future of this region. Infrastructure that lets more people access the beautiful parks and community hubs that we have in this region, and infrastructure that's resilient. You know, the pictures of the flooding, there is no doubt that we are dealing with climate change. There is no doubt that we have to build infrastructure that is better, and so that kind of infrastructure is what is going to bring the world to this region, is going to bring jobs, and is going to allow us to thrive. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy these next few years, but it's very, very exciting. And I'm thrilled that the partnerships are there. It's one of the reasons that I, along with Hazel McCallion and Ann Golden, called together the regional mayors and chairs to talk about finding the solutions that we need and pushing each other to come up with solutions at the government level on how we can create that strong region that we know we're capable of. So, thank you for the work that you do. I think I hear a baby. And I just want to say, I love that I hear a baby. I love that I hear a baby. The thing that mothers need to know is that if it's somebody else's baby crying, it doesn't matter. It's only when it's your own baby that you're going crazy. So that baby is the point. That baby is why we're all here. That baby is why we have to work together. That baby is why we need to set aside our partisanship, set aside our particular hobby horses, and listen to each other and find the solutions that are practical, that are in the best interest of the people of this region and beyond, and are not tied to ideology, but are the real things that people need in their lives every single day. So thank you very much. Merci. Miigwech.